出発のお客様にご案内
If you need any assistance, please wait for a moment. Cabin attendant, stand by at door. 業務連絡です。Cabin attendant, step slide 1.
Hey guys, we're back. Back in central Japan. After a couple of short flight delays, we're back in central Japan. So, Hokkaido, some observations about Hokkaido. What a beautiful place. So, for a couple of decades we've been talking about going there because everything we see about Hokkaido is always beautiful and just always wanted to go there, and we just never have. So, finally got there, and it was every bit as amazing as we sort of expected, and more probably. All sorts of things that we didn't expect. So just beautiful. So some observations. The cities, I mean the biggest city is Sapporo, which is only 2 million people, so it's not very big, but the city has a similar feel to the cities in the rest of Japan. But once you leave the city and get out in the countryside, it's just so different. It's just so different. As those of you who watched the videos that the last few weeks of videos that we just released about Hokkaido, just beautiful, so different. What was striking when we were preparing to go, we were using Google Maps a lot to actually work out where we're going to go, and the landscape, you know, if you look on Google Maps, it's all circles because it's all volcanic. So Hokkaido's covered in volcanoes, so the mountains are all classic volcano shapes like Fuji, and the lakes, most of the lakes are calderas, so they're big circular holes basically, often with a perfectly circular island in the middle. Just amazing. Really, like we often imagined as we're traveling around, dinosaur country, you know, and I mean there are a lot of dinosaur fossils in Hokkaido, but that's the sort of the feeling you get. The land feels so new and alive because it's still moving, you know, it's still changing. We showed you some examples of that on those videos. Is, you know, because of the volcanoes and the activity, the volcanic activity and the earthquake activity and so on, the land's still moving, and it just gives you this feeling of being really new, really young countryside. Just imagine seeing dinosaurs walk through it. Just beautiful. And then just big open spaces that we don't usually see in the rest of Japan, you know, that usually you have sort of small, as we've showed you before, central Japan in particular, lots of small rice fields, you know, and every piece of spare land has a rice field on it, or dense woodland, you know. So most of central Japan, the actual central part of central Japan, something like Japan has some enormous number, it's like 80% of the land in Japan is unusable because it's all mountains. So that's what we usually get, is we usually get the forests on the mountains, and then anywhere where there's a bit of open space you usually get lots of rice fields or other sort of crops. Whereas in Hokkaido you just get these huge open spaces with just nothing, you know, and just grass, just grass. We showed you a few examples of that. We're trying to capture that on video. Just hard to get the image across exactly how big the open spaces are. Relatively, I just got to throw this in too. Somebody commented I mentioned on one of the videos about it being fairly isolated or very sparsely populated or something, and someone made a comment about in America, you know, it's like in America that's not sparse compared to America or something. It's not sparse compared to Australia either. You know, Australia has some of the remotest pieces of land on the earth, you know, and some of the biggest farms and things like that. So we weren't comparing it to America or Australia, we were comparing it to the rest of Japan. So compared to the rest of Japan, you know, Hokkaido is very sparsely populated, particularly as you get the northern half of Hokkaido. The southern half is a little bit more populated and a little bit more, you know, a few more people, but the further you go north, the sort of the sparser and sparser it gets, and those open spaces, you know, again, central Japan, usually the fields are fairly small, so the farmers have pretty small tractors. We've showed you before, harvesting and sowing and planting and so on, pretty small tractors, whereas up in Hokkaido they've got those massive big tractors because they've got huge big areas. So just amazing. So that was really striking. You know, the trees, beautiful trees. We kept calling them Christmas trees, but whatever those trees are, they're all over the place up there. It's just beautiful. Very fresh because it's so sparsely populated and it's so far north. Beautiful blue skies at night, really clear skies. You know, really fresh air, clear water. Those lakes were just amazing. We showed you a couple of examples of that. Just amazing clear water. So just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. As far as when to go there, I mean, now we want to go in winter, right? Our thinking was we wanted to go when we did at the beginning of or end of spring. The thinking was that if we went in winter, that it would be too hard to travel around, and we were right. There would have been a lot of those places that we went to, we wouldn't have been able to go there in winter because the roads would have been closed. Happens every year. And that was our worry, is that if we had that plan to do that big tour of right round the island, if we got heavy snow like they had last winter, you know, last winter, and we see every year really, we see on the news here, oh, in Hokkaido this week, you know, all the highways were closed. Last year, the highways got shut down because they had meters of snow that they couldn't get rid of, and the airports shut down, and people were stuck in New Chitose airport for days, sleeping in the airport because they couldn't get out because it just closed down. They had meters of snow, they couldn't take off or land. So that's why we knew if we went in winter, we'd like to see the ice festival and some other things that they have happen there in winter, and just see the place in winter covered in snow. But just logistically, you know, the chances are that we just wouldn't be able to get around. So that's why we went when we did, and it was a really good decision because it was much easier to travel around. A lot of those, if you're thinking about doing what we did with the camper, apparently a couple of people got interested after they saw how we did it with the camper. We did it that way because we knew that lots of Hokkaido was isolated. So our thinking was if we had food on board and water on board and beds on board, that if we ended up somewhere really isolated, which we did, that we didn't have to worry about finding somewhere to stay. So that's why we did the camper thing, and it was a really good idea. We'd recommend it. However, most of the campsites, the good ones that we showed you, they open usually at the start of May or in the middle of May. So that's the other thing we found when we researched before we went. Most of those really nice campsites are just closed from it's like October or November through to May, and half the year basically, and then they open in May and stay open until the snow gets too heavy. So, you know, May, June, July, August maybe would probably be the best time if you want to do what we did and travel around, or even if you just want to travel around by car or even travel around by bus in a tour. You know, if you want to go see the place, if you want to see Hokkaido and travel around Hokkaido, you know, that would obviously be the best time to do it, because winter you've got a good chance you just might get stuck and not be able to go anywhere. So we're really happy that we did that. On the camper thing too, that was absolutely excellent. The combination of those really good campsites that were just amazing, and then those little road stations. That saved us a few times. We're in the middle of nowhere and we just come across one of these little, just basically a car park with a toilet block. and we just pull in there and stop and stay there, and that worked really well. We saw when we were researching people that had travelled by camper just in Japan in general, but also in Hokkaido, lots of them talked about not being able to get rid of their rubbish, and it might be because they're not used to living in Japan, perhaps, but we're used to separating our garbage. It's just what we do here, and so we always separate our rubbish into the different categories. And because we had it already separated, now and again when we pulled in somewhere, we'd find a row of rubbish bins, or some of those campsites, the good campsites, had places where you could put your rubbish, and we just tossed it. So a lot of people, if you just do decide to do what we did and do the camper thing, you will come across people talking about how it's too hard to get rid of your rubbish. A lot of people kept saying that. No problem at all. Keep it all separated into the different categories, you know, pet bottles and cans and things. And then when you do get the opportunity at a campground or a road station or something, and then suddenly you've got a row of rubbish bins, you can just throw it all in there and get rid of it. So it really wasn't a big deal. Really wasn't a big deal. If you're not going to do the camper thing, or if you want hotels, there was one particular night we just couldn't find anywhere. It was sort of starting to get later, and we really wanted showers, and we started calling hotels. So we're calling hotels at this next. It was Abashiri, where the prison is, and the ice thing and all that stuff that we showed you. And we started calling hotels in Abashiri, and they're all saying, oh, sorry, do you have a booking? No. Oh no, you need to book at least 24 hours before to get a room. And this was not holiday season. We purposely didn't go in holiday season because we knew that everybody would be busy. That's why a lot of those places we went to showed video, there was no one there, because we purposefully do that when we go places. We go in, there's no one there. And so the hotels weren't full, and they're all just saying, oh no, if you don't have a reservation at least 24 hours before, you can't get a hotel. So keep that in mind if you do want to stay in hotels in Hokkaido. Make sure you book your hotels at least 24 hours before, because they just kept knocking us back. Probably different in Sapporo and in the big cities, probably, but Abashiri, let me tell you, we called so many hotels and they all said the same thing. And then we went past our onsen, old onsen, and it had, because a lot of those onsens have like hotels part of it, you know. And so we stopped at this old onsen, and I walked in with my wife, and she was walking ahead of me, and she walked up to the counter and said, we're looking for a room, we would like to stay in a room, and because she loves the onsens too, so the idea was to book a room, or stay in the room for a night, and then and they could use the onsen and stuff, because I'm not really into the onsen. I'm not into nuding up with the old men. But the ladies are, so that would have been perfect, and we would have had showers there in the room that I could have used, and it would have been all good. And the guy behind the counter, she's asked him, and he's looked at her, and then he's looked over at me, and then he's looked back at her, and you could see him sort of thinking for a second. He said, oh no, sorry, we don't have any rooms. We don't have any rooms. And this was one of those really old, it was a really old onsen, and you know the classic old hotels that have the little pigeonholes for all the rooms, numbered, you know, 101, 102, 103, 104, and all the rows of rooms, and most of them had their keys in there, right? Because you know that old style of hotel where you book in, they take the key out of the pigeonhole and give it to you. So you could see there was like, you know, 20% of his rooms were actually taken because the keys weren't in there, and the 80% of the rooms had keys in the pigeonholes, which means that his place is almost empty. And oh no, sorry, we don't have a room, he said after looking at me. And so I looked at these keys, and I said, really? And it was off season, and it was like a Wednesday or something, and so, you know, it was clearly obvious. There was no one around. His car park only had a couple of cars in it, and really, no rooms. Okay, thank you very much. So that was clearly don't want the foreigner in my onsen experience. It was clear. The others weren't. The others were just their policy, because my wife was calling. They had no idea there was a foreigner in the car. So the others were. That was just their policy, that if you don't book 24 hours or more before, you can't have a room. Assuming they must have some system where you book, you know, 2 days before, and they can prepare your room for you or something. But yeah, I had to mention the racist guy, the bigoted guy, didn't want a foreigner in his onsen. So that night was actually the night. Those of you who followed the videos, that video was called the last free camping night or something like that, and we eventually just found this road station that was just a car park with a toilet block, and it's so quiet up northern Japan. There's northern Hokkaido. There's just almost no traffic, and we stopped in there. It was just dead quiet, absolutely dead quiet. This'll do, and we just made ourselves comfortable and just stayed the night there. So it was a bit disappointing because we really wanted an onsen and a shower, but it was all right. We survived it. So yeah, again, another advantage of the camper. But if you decide to go and stay in hotels instead, make sure you book at least 24 hours before, and don't be a foreigner. That was the first time I experienced that for a long time. I had a similar experience about 20 years ago in Kyoto. I walked into a ryokan, an old Japanese inn in Hokkaido, and the old guy came out and saw me and went, mata, gaijin mata. So again a foreigner, something like that he said, again a foreigner. And he let me in, let me stay. But yeah, he made it clear he wasn't impressed. So it does happen. It's cool, it's not a big deal. We've talked about this before, we made whole videos about this topic before. So yeah, that's sort of pretty much everything else you've sort of seen on the videos. There's not really much more to add, but just highly recommend it. It's just such a beautiful place, and just so different. It really is very different from the rest of Japan. It really is. I haven't seen any countryside anywhere else in Japan that's similar, with those rolling hills, you know, no fences. A lot of those cattle farms will just have these rolling hills where it looks like they harvest grow some sort of grass and harvest it, and as a result of that they just don't have any fences. So just beside the road it just opens up and just those rolling hills. We tried to show you on some videos, just rolling hills of just grass, just beautiful, you know. And now and again they'll fence them off with an electric fence and put the cows out there, you know. And that's the other thing, cows, you know, we don't sort of, usually cows in central Japan are kept in sheds, and you don't sort of see them out in paddocks. But in Hokkaido, they make a big deal about this too at the marketing of, that we see here in central Japan. We see advertising for Hokkaido milk and Hokkaido ice cream and Hokkaido butter and produce from Hokkaido, and they always market it with those images of the big open spaces and those black and white cows out in the countryside, and they really market that, they really push that image, because that's the truth, that's the reality of it. You know, the cows in central Japan tend to be in sheds, you don't sort of see them outside. Whereas Hokkaido, obviously in winter they must be in sheds, but when the greens out, the cows are out in the fields. It's beautiful. And the animals, that's the other thing, the animals, the foxes, fox, so it was just like a constant game as we're driving around. Fox, you know, deer, what did we say in that video? 90,000 deer or whatever, I can't remember what it was, whatever it is, it's in that video. Just an incredible amount of deer. Everywhere we went, you just see little groups of deer, little herds of deer all over the place, and those signs warning about the deer all over the place. The bears, that was a classic. The lady of the house spotted the bears. She's got a real good eye for animals, and we're driving along and she said, "What's that?" There was just 3 black dots up on the hill, and it just didn't look like deer, it didn't look like cows. So we stopped and got the 4D camera out and zoomed it in. That's that video we made about the bears, and there they were up on the hill digging a hole, trying to eat something. So amazing. Squirrel, we saw a squirrel at that prison. When we were at the prison, there was a squirrel in the tree. Never seen a squirrel in Japan. We get, what do we get here? Itachi are ferrets. We get ferrets here in the garden, and we get animals like that, but never seen a squirrel. So yeah, squirrel in the tree, the prison. So just beautiful there. And the birds, you know, you might have seen that forest, the video about the forest and sunset. I was outside an onsen. And it's just this forest and just the bird life. So yeah, the wildlife is just absolutely beautiful. The nature in Hokkaido. Most of the videos we made about Hokkaido ended up on the nature and environment playlist. because that's what they were, just beautiful nature, beautiful countryside, and just beautiful imagery, and just one postcard image after another everywhere we went. It's just amazing. So yes, so you might get the impression that we loved it. We really did love it, and we'd like to go back. We're sort of kicking around the idea, sort of have no money now. That was our first holiday, big holiday in 12 years, because we sort of don't have the sort of money to throw away on holidays usually. So that was our big holiday. But sometime in the future, if we get the opportunity, we'd like to go back in winter, aware of the fact that we wouldn't be able to travel around much, obviously. So probably Sapporo for the ice festival. They've got an ice festival there where they make things out of ice, all sorts of carvings and statues, and it's quite famous. But yeah, a bit of a problem in winter because it's really popular around there for skiing. So the tourist industry in Hokkaido in winter is massive. So sort of not real keen on that. So not really sure how we'd achieve this yet. Keep that in mind too if you decide to go in summer, like we did and do the travel round thing. Try and go when it's not busy season, because Hokkaido is really famous for tourism. You know, they get a lot of tourists and buses and all that sort of thing. So we sort of picked, the season had sort of opened, so the campsites, a lot of those places we went, that fossil tour that we did, we were their first customers for the year. That was their first day that they were trading for the year. The campsites, a lot of those campsites we stayed in, that was their first week for the year. So we went at just the start of the summer season, or the green season, whatever you want to call it. We're just there for the very start of it, just before it got busy. So that's why most of those places we went, there was no one there. We do that on purpose. You know, those who have been with us over the years will know places that we go. Quite often people say, why was there no one there? We do that on purpose. You know, we'll go to places during the week, Monday to Friday, instead of the weekend. You know, we go when it's not school holidays. And it's not peak season because, you know, Hokkaido's popular. So a lot of those big campsites that were beautiful and empty, you know, in the peak season would be full of people, which would be a totally different experience, wouldn't it? So, I mean, our whole goal was to enjoy the tranquility and the isolation and that sort of thing. So we didn't want to be doing that with hundreds and hundreds of other tourists. So that's why we went when we did. And it was just right. It was just right. Highly recommend it to you. That was, you know, about the middle of May was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And I imagine right now it would probably be hugely busy, because it's a sort of a cool escape for those of us who live in the rest of Japan. Escaping up to Hokkaido in July and August, you know, when it's hot here, it's starting to get humid here, it's rainy season, it's really humid. So people do escape from here, and then we've got all the tourists from around the world that like to go to Hokkaido. It's sort of famous, you know. And in winter, same thing with the skiing. You know, a lot of those places that we went to in winter would be just full of people, you know, because the skiing's huge in Hokkaido. People come from all around the world to go skiing there. So anyway, enough. I could talk about this all day. I love that place. Absolutely love that place. So it's excellent. Those of you who haven't checked out the videos yet, I made sure I included Hokkaido in the title of every one of them. So you can just go back through our videos if you want to. Or if you go to the channel page and just search Hokkaido, all the Hokkaido videos will come up. I don't know how many there are. Must be about 40. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. They weren't very popular, those videos. You know, they were getting 200 or 300 views, most of them. So, you know, I thought people might be more into them than they were, but they weren't. Some of our patrons and supporters and subscribers sort of enjoyed them. You know, some of our regulars sort of enjoyed them, but yeah, you know, that sort of stuff's not so popular on YouTube, is it? So yeah, people didn't get into them as much as I thought they might. We spent a lot of time shooting video and editing video so that we could sort of share it with everybody. But yeah, most people weren't sort of into it too much. Maybe people just picked which ones they're sort of half interested in, but we loved it. And most importantly, our patrons and our PayPal supporters seem to enjoy it, our coffee supporters. So they're the guys that you know, if they're happy, we're happy. And we're definitely happy. We had a hoot. We had an absolute hoot. So yeah, Hokkaido, highly recommend it to you. So now we will return to our usual programming from Central Japan for now. More videos coming soon.